You know, there's a quote from this great show known as SpongeBob SquarePants. The quote being from the great philosopher Larry the Lobster: "Livin' like Larry." In simple terms, it means to live life to the fullest and take risks, calculated, but risks nonetheless, in the name of being happy and having fun. And I began to wonder, who are some people in life that truly embodied the statement of living like Larry? Yeah, Steve Irwin lived like Larry.
11 toes down, take a second to look around, pulling bodies out the ground, a place to ride around.
Steve Irwin was born February 22nd of 1962 on his mother Lynette Kykeson's 20th birthday, his father being Bob Irwin. He was born in Upper Ferntree Gully, a suburb of Melbourne, his parents being of English and Irish descent. In 1970, he moved to Queensland, Australia with his family, where he attended middle school and high school. Irwin's father was actually a wildlife expert who was interested in herpetology, aka the zoological study of amphibians, while his mother was a wildlife rehabilitator. After they moved to Queensland, Irwin's parents started the Queensland Reptile and Fauna Park. This is the place that begins Irwin's lifelong interest in crocodiles, given he got to constantly be around them and other reptiles. Now, mind you, with Irwin's parents running this zoo, it wasn't just something that he got to occasionally visit. No, he was part of it with them. You know, he fed the animals, learned how to take care of them, and most importantly, learned how to properly handle exotic animals. For instance, for his 6th birthday, his parents gave him a 12-foot scrub python. He then began learning to handle crocodiles at the age of 9. Also at the age of 9, he wrestled his first crocodile under his father's supervision. Now, as a pretty wild old country boy, I've done some pretty out there shit at a young age, you know, like driving up like 70-foot dunes out at Little Sahara Park at like 12, you know, shooting like AK pistols at like 7, 6, something like that. You know, working on a 68 Barracuda that had like well over 1,000 horsepower at 18. Some crazy shit. But with all that being said, there was never a point whenever I was like 9 years old where my dad was like, you know, son, I see you're pretty interested in crocodiles. I'm gonna teach you how to wrestle the some bitches. At 9. He worked as a volunteer for Queensland's East Coast Crocodile Management Program, with which he had captured over 100 crocs for the organization. Some of them being relocated, others being put in his family's park. In 1991, Irwin took over management from his parents' park and later renamed it the iconic Australia Zoo in 1998. Also in 1991, a woman by the name of Terry Raines, an American naturalist from Eugene, Oregon, who frequently visited wildlife rehabilitation facilities, had found herself in Australia visiting Steve's zoo. According to Steve and Terry, it was love at first sight. Terry stated later that she felt that there was no one like him. She said he was like an environmental Tarzan. Yeah, I definitely agree with not too many people like him. They engaged 4 months after initially meeting, and they married on the 4th of June, 1992. Entirely par for the course, Steve and his wife spent their honeymoon trapping crocodiles together. Interestingly enough, the footage of the Crocodile Hunter Moon, filmed by John Staton, became the first episode of the iconic Crocodile Hunter show. The show aired on Australian TV screens in 1996 and got on American televisions a year later. Of course, the moment the mass public was exposed to a guy like Steve, Steve became a world-famous icon very quickly, with the show airing in 130 countries and being watched by 500 million people. Of course, Steve's signature accent, khakis, and crikey catchphrase made him an international sensation. The famous narrator Sir David Attenborough praised Irwin for introducing so many people to the wonders of wildlife, saying he taught them how wonderful and exciting it was. He was a born communicator. In 1998, Irwin and his wife had their first child on July 24th, naming her Bindi Sue Irwin. Bindi, unsurprisingly named after two of Irwin's favorite pets, Bindi, a saltwater crocodile, and Suey, a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. While his son, being born December 1st, 2003, was named Robert Clarence Irwin. Robert is named after Irwin's father, Bob, and Terry's father, Clarence. Yeah, I think old Terry might have put her foot down on that one, like, nope, he's getting a normal name. You named my daughter after a crocodile, I'm not letting you name my son after a reticulated python. But the Crocodile Hunter show unfortunately couldn't last forever, with the final episode coming out in 2004, with the show spanning from 1996 to 2004 with 64 episodes and 13 specials. Animal Planet's final episode of The Crocodile Hunter was titled Steve's Last Adventure. The final Crocodile Hunter documentary was 3 hours in length, in which it showed Steve's adventures in Borneo, Kruger National Park. By the way, if you haven't seen that video, The Battle of Kruger, online, you need to. It's fucking incredible. He also traveled to the Himalayas and one of the longest rivers in the world being the Yangtze River in China. But Irwin's work with Animal Planet wasn't over. After the show, he starred in other AP docs including Croc Files, the Crocodile Hunter Diaries, and New Breed Vets. Animal Planet also created the annual Croc Week Marathon, which lasted a full week in the middle of June, every year from 2000 to 2007. But with this being said, he had worked in other shows, docs, and even movies besides Crocodile Hunter while it was still running. This included Mark Strickson's The 10 Deadliest Snakes in the World, with Irwin being the presenter of the dog. Also, and this is probably like some of my favorite Steve Irwin stuff, he appeared in a lot of talk shows, bringing the most like absurd animals like to Conan O'Brien and Jay Leno and them, just seeing their reaction while he's got like a crocodile. It's amazing.
Incredible. All right. That's great. That's incredible.
Now, this is a Burmese python.
Okay.
Which is
Hi.
been a star in one of our shows.
Right. Why is he coming this way?
Well,
What's the point of that?
Yeah, it's a female and it's probably attracted to you, Conan, you know, like...
Great. I always get the snake. You know?
He also appeared in some commercials as well. For example, in 2002, he appeared in a FedEx commercial where they jokingly went over the possibility of Irwin suffering from a snake bite, and he would have been saved in time if he had used FedEx.
This is the fear snake, the most venomous snake in the world. One bite from him and it's all over. No! Oh, no worries, mate. Luckily, we've had the anti-venom sent from America via FedEx. In my line of work, if you're not absolutely sure, you're absolutely dead. Oh, crikey. It appears we've used a different courier who hasn't arrived yet. It's okay because...
He also appeared in different movie roles, such as a cameo role in Eddie Murphy's Dr. Dolittle 2, where an alligator warns Dolittle that he knows Irwin is going to grab him and is prepared to attack when he does. But Dolittle fails to warn Irwin in time, and Irwin's character gets his ass eaten. Pause. I should have worded that differently. That was my fault. Irwin's only starring feature film was the Crocodile Hunter Collision Course, the movie being a 2002 comedy where Steve plays himself and ends up mistaking CIA agents for poachers and tries to stop them. The CIA are actually looking for a tracking transmitter the crocodile swallowed. The film received mixed reviews. In 2002, Irwin and his family appeared in the Wiggles video/DVD release Wiggly Safari and featured singing and dancing inspired Australian wildlife. Steve also being very intelligent to the fact that people only give a shit about animals when they see them in real life, he made sure to front an advert campaign for the Gone in 2003, a passenger train operating between Adelaide, Alice Springs, and Darwin, the train being highly advantageous for tourists to see Australia's natural wildlife as well as come to the Australia Zoo. In return, a professional national rail class locomotive was named after Irwin as part of the campaign. With this being said, if it wasn't blatantly obvious already, Steve was a huge supporter of conservation, and spent much of his life participating and donating to wildlife conservation programs, as well as starting some programs himself. See, the way he did it, and I think probably the best way to do it, is he informed the public without criticizing or lecturing them. Instead of being like, fuck you, donate to nature, quit hurting the animals. You know, he would just be like, whoa, look at this big fucking tiger. Give some money to protect the big fucking tiger. He didn't cuss, but I cuss because that's how I think Australians speak. But yeah, that's the right way to do it. That's what gets my dumb American ass to put $5 into the World Wildlife Fund. Instead of being like, don't be terrible, contribute to nature. Just be like, this nature's pretty cool. You want the cool stuff to stay there? Maybe give a little money, it'll help out. That's the right way to do it. It's said that Irwin considered wildlife conservation to be the most important part of his work, above the fame, above the money, above all of it. Of which I have no doubt. I'm sure that really was his biggest motive. I believe that entirely. He said, and I quote, "I consider myself a wildlife warrior. My mission is to save the world's endangered species."
I've been put on this planet to protect wildlife and wilderness areas, which in essence is going to help humanity. I want to have the purest oceans. I want to be able to drink water straight out of that creek. I want to stop the ozone layer. I want to save the world. And you know, money's great. I can't get enough money. And you know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to buy wilderness areas with it. Every single cent I get goes straight into conservation. And guess what, Charles? I don't give a rip whose money it is, mate. I'll use it and I'll spend it on buying land.
And he financially put his money to where his mouth was. With Irwin's TV show money, he bought patches of land in Fiji, Australia, Vanuatu, and the USA, all for conservation. Irwin also founded the Steve Irwin Conservation Foundation, which became an independent charity that later changed its name to Wildlife Warriors Worldwide. Steve also helped start the Lynn Irwin Memorial Fund to honor his mother, who had tragically died in a car crash in 2000. the Memorial Fund also being a wildlife conservation charity. He also helped found International Crocodile Rescue, and he helped found the Ironbark Station Wildlife Rehabilitation Facility. With all that big stuff that Irwin did, it's important to also mention, he urged people, it doesn't matter how much money you have, how big of a contribution it is, it doesn't matter. Everyone can make a difference. And it's not just with money, He told people, don't eat shark fin soup because that contributes to the poaching. Don't buy turtle shells. Contribute without giving your money as well. Give your money to the right stuff, Aside from crocodile wrestling and snake wrangling, that's a sentence I never thought I'd get to say. Irwin had other passions. For instance, Irwin was actually quite fond of martial arts and trained with Greg Jackson on the martial art he created known as Gaido Jutsu, which was an MMA type art that combines elements of Muay Thai, catch wrestling, and judo blocks. See, my MMA class was very Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Goju Karate based. Irwin also became a blue belt in Jiu-Jitsu as well, which training like that may seem a little strange given Irwin's main line of work, but given the kind of quick reaction time / distancing techniques those art forms teach, it makes a lot of sense that he would study that, honestly. In my opinion, anyways. Especially some of the stuff I learned in karate, I can see how that would contribute to keeping yourself away from, an alligator charging at you or a crocodile charging at you, because it's a lot of how to get away from the danger on the ground and when you're standing up. So I could see how maybe that was what got him into that, at least. Being Australia's most Australian that ever Australian, Irwin was naturally a big fan of cricket, Australia rules football, the checkerball one, not the free country one, as well as being a fan of rugby. Funnily enough, Irwin, being a big Brisbane Broncos fan, attended one of their practices, and while there, he jovially asked if he could tackle the largest player on the team, this being Shane Webke. After getting completely bodied by Webke, he was still said to be still happy after the experience. See, from what I gathered, Irwin liked rugby about as much as I like NASCAR. For instance, in a behind the scenes of the Crocodile Hunter episode, Irwin and his crew found a gas station in BFE Namibia to watch the Rugby Union Wallabies defeat France in the 1999 Rugby World Cup final. And yes, like I said, Irwin, being more Australian than Crocodile Dundee, did in fact like surfing, and would take advantage of traveling around the world for his TV show by surfing in places like Mali, even in fact filming a Croc Hunter episode titled Surfing with Snakes. Now that fella right there is a super duper deadly danger noodle known as the banded crate. It is in the top 10 and possibly top 5 most venomous snakes in the world. Irwin let it have a nice cozy spot on his head. Man, I think I'm starting to get a phobia of Australian people. They got a whole different kind of fucking redneck down there. With this being said, as much as Irwin valued animal life, he absolutely valued human life as well. And there was one case where he stuck his neck out there whenever he didn't have to, in the name of human life. For instance, in November 2003, Irwin was filming a sea lion documentary off the coast of Baja when he and his crew heard over the boat radio that 2 scuba divers had gone missing in the area. That is my worst nightmare. Steve and his crew suspended the entire documentary to help pitch in and look for these people. His team's divers helped search with the rescue divers, and Irwin used his vessel to patrol the waters around the island where the divers went missing. He even used his satellite communication system to help call in a rescue plane. Mind you, that movie Open Water, that was based on a true story about the Louisiana couple off the coast of the Great Barrier Reef, happened that same year, so I assume that was playing in everyone's mind as well, and they didn't want that outcome to happen again. Just my assumption. Especially with Steve and his crew, given that event happened off the coast of their own country. Fortunately, on the second day of the search, kayakers found diver Scott Jones laying on a narrow rock ledge in the side of a cliff. Irwin and a crew member escorted him onto his boat. Unfortunately, the other diver, Katie Vrooman, was found dead by a search plane later that day, not far from where Jones was found. With all the good that Irwin did, it's important to remember, though, that he was still human, and as much as I don't want to talk about his controversies, it is my job to cover his story, so I would be wrong to not speak of them. These included the fact that some people felt that he took overly dangerous and unnecessary risks with dangerous animals. Though with that being said, I've only seen members of the general public saying that, not necessarily wildlife experts. However, French oceanic explorer Jean-Michel Cousteau, the language for the people that eat fucking snails, felt that Irwin's methods for handling wildlife was misleading and that wildlife should be left alone in its natural habitat. While PETA said that Irwin's shows were trying to excite audiences at the expense of nature, they also claimed that his actions were not in line with his message of protecting wildlife. And personally, on the behalf of my dog and my gecko, go fuck yourself, PETA. And now, Time to talk about his most notable controversy, and the one that was actually legitimately controversial, I'd say. The media portraying it as like his Michael Jackson moment. When on January 2nd, 2002, Irwin carried his 1-month-old son Robert in his arm while hand-feeding a chicken carcass to Murray, a 3.8-meter, 12-foot, 6-inch saltwater crocodile.
They say you should never work with children or animals, or Steve Irwin, especially if you're Baby Bob, or Lunch, as he's known around the crocodile pen.
Steve Irwin is no longer Australia's favourite crocodile hunter. In fact, the knives are out right across the world.
Now, this was an event that not even Irwin could get away with without catching at least some backlash, where some television viewers, child welfare groups, and even animal rights groups criticized Irwin for doing what some had saw as irresponsible and could even be seen as child abuse. Irwin had to come on NBC's Today Show to apologize. Both Irwin and his wife said that the child was in no danger and had showed the video from a different angle, showing they were farther from the croc than what it had appeared.
Right here, Tracy, is a tape from the Australia Zoo camera, which will give you another angle, so all of that ugly stacked up vision of me with the croc looking like I'm endangering my child will be put to bed very quickly.
No charges were filed due to the incident. With that being said, according to a journalist, Irwin had told officials he would never do that act with an infant again. With that being said, the act caused the state of Queensland's government to update their croc handling laws, banning children and untrained adults from entering croc enclosures. Now, I mean, like, the child part of it I get, because a crocodile sees a toddler as like a walking ham sandwich. But in terms of not having untrained people around them, my question is, how do you train someone to handle crocodiles if they don't get to be in the enclosure with crocodiles? I'm probably missing something. I'm not an expert on this, but that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. And now that we've talked about Irwin's life, his upbringing, all the good things that he's done for nature and charity, and even his controversies, now I have to regrettably talk about, you know what I have to talk about.
Australian crocodile hunter Steve Irwin has died during a diving expedition near Port Douglas in Australia.
Well, it's reported the environmentalist was killed after being stabbed by a stingray barb in the chest while filming an underwater documentary on the Great Barrier Reef.
Yes, that's right. On the 4th of September 2006, Steve Irwin tragically passed away as a result of being stabbed in the heart by a short-tailed stingray that was about 6 foot 7 inches across, while filming a documentary at the Great Barrier Reef. He was 44 years young. As you can imagine, this was a tragic event that affected millions of people all over the world in all facets of society, not just animal lovers and conservationists. Of course, naturally, absolutely devastating Steve Irwin's family especially. It affected Irwin's wife Terry so much that she has never fully recovered, feeling understandably that, and I quote, "I've learned to accept that some pain is permanent." That's pretty fucking heavy, bro. Oof. Terry also being so committed to Steve that since his death over 19 years ago, she has never once been on a date with a man since then, and has no plans to, saying, "I'm content being single, and I had my happily ever after." Don't you cry, you fucking pussy. Hold it in. Hold it in! Luckily though, Steve Irwin's legacy was and has been carried on through his family. For example, the show Bindi the Jungle Girl was a children's education show that followed Irwin's daughter Bindi, teaching kids about exotic wildlife, with Irwin appearing in some episodes that were shot prior to his death. Fucking cocksucking stingray. I don't even want to own a Corvette now. Interestingly enough, the show aired on the Discovery Kids channel, a station a young Bradford Norbury frequented to feed his sharp dinosaur and snake habit he had at the time. The show quickly became a favorite of his, and it also served as his introduction to the icon known as Steve Irwin. And about 15 years later, that same kid went full circle making his own documentary-style video about Steve Irwin. Yeah, that kid was me, if you can't tell. He was he was an inspiration to me since I was, you know, about yay big, you know, and it led to me doing things like adopting a gecko, you know, that I've had for about 11 years now, and becoming a big animal lover and a big pro-conservationist myself, you know. And that show, Bindi the Jungle Girl, was kind of like my start to that, so I wanted to add that too. And now I has this guy. Guess who loves you? Envy loves you. Here we go now? Okay, bye-bye. From like 5 to 8, I wanted to be a paleontologist, and then watching shit like, you know, Steve Irwin show and Bindi and the Jungle Girl and a few other notable shows, you know, like River Monster, stuff like that. I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I wanted to be a marine biologist from like 9 to 13 years old, you know, and then I wanted to be an underwater welder after that. I'm starting to notice a pattern here. After his passing, Terry Irwin became the sole owner of the Australia Zoo, while their kids, Bindi and Robert, both helped manage the zoo, just as their father did, with Bindi being made CEO of the zoo, and Robert trying to fill Steve's gargantuan shoes by doing the same thing his father did, like advocating for conservation, doing crocodile shows, appearing in TV shows and specials including Australia's top 10 deadliest snakes, as well as appearing on talk shows. Yeah, I gotta say, given how like monstrously huge his dad's shoes are to fill, he has done a very good job filling them. You know, I'm sure Steve would be proud. I should also mention that Terry Irwin published her autobiography in 2007, titled Steve and Me, going into detail about her marriage with Steve Irwin and all the adventures they had went on. And there you have it, guys. The Steve Irwin, the Crocodile Hunter vid. It's out. It took a little bit longer for me to come out with this than I wanted. I caught the flu. It's just one of those things. Luckily, the Diogenes video should be here like most Richie Ticky. I have the thumbnail made for it. I've got the script, all that should be out in a couple weeks, you know. But I wanted to make sure to come out with this one first because that's what you guys wanted to see most. And so, yeah, I wanted to give it to you guys, you know. I already made a Patreon, right? I'm going to leave a link in the description for that. I would really like you guys to maybe support me on there, you know, and if you want to have a more direct involvement in my content. And I'm working on a country song right now that'll probably be out in the next few months. I hope you guys like that, and yeah. Have a good one. I'd also just like to leave y'all with this. This is how I'm feeling right about now.
Can you see through the wonder of amazement?
That motherfucker, man. God damn.
11 toes down.